Okay, we're gonna sew with the dog in our lap. Okay. Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. My name is Emily and I do my best to sew projects and hopefully help you learn a few things along the way. Today we're going to work together to make a microwavable rice bag. These make great presents around Christmas time for friends, family, and coworkers, and they're pretty easy to put together. First, you want to gather up your supplies. You need a pin to mark your fabric with, a pair of scissors to cut your fabric out, some rice, or you can also use dried beans or flaxseed, a funnel, a ruler. When you pick out your fabric, make sure you get something that's 100% cotton. Cotton flannel works well, it's a little bit thicker than regular cotton. You can get really good cuts of fabric at the remnant section at Joann for pretty cheap. You also need a sewing machine with thread, some pins to hold everything together, or you can use clips, and you need an ironing board and an iron. So first, you want to decide how big you want your finished bag to be, and then you're going to add an inch in both the length and the width. Today, I wanted to make a rectangular rice bag with a finished size of 6 inches by 8 inches. So I cut my fabric 7 inches by 9 inches. You can make yours any size that you want, but just remember to add an inch to the width and the length when you cut it out. You need to cut out 2 pieces of fabric, each with the same measurements. Here I cut out 2 rectangles measuring 7 inches tall by 9 inches wide. And remember, this is because I want my finished bag to be 6 inches by 8 inches. You can use a rotary cutter and a mat for this, but if you're using scissors, then just use a pin and a ruler to mark your dimensions and then cut it out with the scissors. You can mark with chalk, erasable fabric pins, or even a ballpoint pen. But be very careful if you're using a ballpoint pen or a Sharpie, because if you mark incorrectly, then it might not ever come out. If you're going to use a ballpoint pen or a Sharpie, I would recommend marking the back side of the fabric so that if you do mess up, it won't be as visible from the front. Remember, I'm cutting my fabric 7 inches by 9 inches because I want my finished bag to be 6 inches by 8 inches. I'm gonna move her. So 7 inches by 9 inches ends up being 6 inches by 8 inches. Alright, so I'm going to show you a little trick that I used when I first started sewing. Take your ruler and your marking pen and draw yourself a 1/2 inch margin on your fabric to follow when you sew. This helped me a lot. I know that sewing in a straight line should be relatively simple, but it's just not that easy for some of us, okay? This step is optional, so if you are confident in your straight line sewing abilities, feel free to skip. Once you get it all marked up to where you can see it, I think I need to get a new one of these pins for Christmas because it's going out. I'm adding a little mark on the fabric where I want an opening to be. You want the opening to be about the size of your hand. That's just a reminder for me to not sew that opening closed. So you're going to place your pieces right sides together. The right side of your fabric is the fabric side that has the design printed on it. So in this case, the right side is the red with the little doggies on it, and the wrong side is the white. So you want the doggies, both sides of the fabric, to have the right sides touching each other. And then you're going to go around with pins or clips and just secure that in place. I put my 2 pins at the top, right where I want that opening to be. Just make sure you don't sew that opening closed. You can see we got our right sides together, there's our opening, and we're going to go to the sewing machine. You're going to start sewing next to the right side of the opening, right there on the right. You're going to take that needle out and lower your foot down and align your needle with where you marked your 1/2 inch margin, if you did that. So put your sewing foot down and then stitch forwards and backwards to fix your thread in place. And when you get to a corner, make sure your needle is down, lift your foot up and rotate your fabric, and then continue sewing forward. Oh, there she is. That's Juniper. She wants some attention. So continue sewing all along the perimeter of your microwavable rice bag. Make sure you don't sew over any of your pins before you get to them. Just pull them out before you sew over them, because you can break a needle that way. Then get to the corner, make sure your needle is down in your fabric, lift your foot up and rotate it. This needle is pretty far from my foot. I'm not going to run over it, so I just left it there. But if your needle is going to go over it, you definitely want to stop sewing and pull it out, because you can break a needle and that's just a pain in the butt. Alright, so we're coming up to where the opening is up here. So we're only going to go to that needle. We're going to take it out. You can see where we marked it with the pin where we're going to stop. Gonna go, and then you're going to do a few stitches backwards. And then lift the foot up, take it out, and snip the thread. Now you're going to go along the corners and you're gonna cut each of the corner. This just takes a little bit of the bulk out to make the corners lay a little bit more straight, I guess. They look more corner-y if you do this. There's less bulk in the fabric. So you're just gonna go around and cut each corner off. Don't get too close to the thread. You wanna leave about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch. You don't want to cut into the thread because that will ruin your project. So just make sure you're not cutting into the thread. Just give it a nice little trim. Alright, make sure you have your coffee, keep you going. So you're going to stick your hand into the pouch and turn it inside out. A chopstick is very helpful for this step. It's not necessary. You could use a pin. That's just a chopstick that I picked up at a Chinese restaurant probably like a decade ago, so I've gotten my 50 cents use out of it for sure. I don't know where the other one is. I just have that one left, so stick it in there, push it in the corners, and push those corners out, but do not push too hard because the chopstick will pierce your fabric, and it's very deflating when that happens. It's very frustrating. So just go through and very gently push those corners out. And next you're going to go over to the ironing board, and with your hot iron, you're going to press down the edges. This helps a lot in the next step. It keeps everything flat and in place. I like to do the front and the back just to keep everything in line. Okay, so this part is optional. You don't have to do this if you're not comfortable with it, but when doing top stitching, I like to increase my stitch width and my stitch length by 1. I just think that it makes the stitches look a little bit nicer. You're going to leave another opening in your bag. This time it's going to be smaller than the first one, about 1 inch, just wide enough for you to get the funnel in there. So take your pins and pin that in place where you're going to have your opening. And then you're going to go back to the sewing machine. Oh! Make sure to give your dog some head scratches to keep up morale. She's very sweet. Yes, she's the star of the show. Alright, so go back to the machine and start again at the right side of the opening. Take your pin out, make sure you don't sew over that. And then put the foot down, and you're gonna sew very close to the edge this time, about 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch. Oh, she went up in the lap. Oh, okay, we're gonna sew with the dog in our lap. Okay. Alright, so you're gonna sew about 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch, very close to the edge, but not so close that you're gonna go off of the fabric. You want all the layers of the fabric to be included in your stitch, but you want to get as close to the edge as you feel comfortable with. Go slowly for this part, just to ensure that everything looks nice. When you get to a corner and you put your needle down and you rotate it, you're going to want to walk your machine over that slowly. The extra layers of fabric can get caught in the feed dogs below. So when you get to the corner, just take a stitch, and then with your needle down, lift the foot up, put it down, take a stitch, lift the foot up, put it down, take a stitch, until you get that fabric moved under the feed dog a little bit more, and then you can continue going forward. So just continue that for the next corner. You have your needle down, and then you rotate it with the foot up, and then take a stitch forward, foot up, down, take a stitch forward, foot up, down, take a stitch forward, foot up, down. I know it's annoying, it's repetitive, but if you don't do this and the fabric is caught in the feed dog and you continue to sew, it just gets all bunched up and it does not look good. So it's just a little bit of patience here will ensure that it looks really good instead of rushed together and stitches all on top of each other. Alright, we're coming up on the very last corner, so turn it with the needle down. I need to go one more stitch forward, get close to that edge, turn it, and then go forward, foot up, down, stitch, foot up, down, stitch, foot up, down. And then remember, we're coming up at another opening, so you don't want to sew that closed. Once you get close to the needle, you want to take the needle out, but make sure that you don't sew your opening closed. We're going to pull the needle out, and then we're going to stitch forwards and backwards to fix our thread in place. And then we're going to take our project out and trim the thread away. So you can see we got our thread around the perimeter, it looks all nice, and we have our tiny little opening to where we can pour our rice in. Gotta get up! Oh. Okay. So I transferred my rice from this big bag into a glass just to make it a little bit more manageable when pouring it into the funnel. I also took some essential oil and I just dropped 3 drops of it directly into my rice. Probably could have gone with 2. I think I was aiming more for 2, but 3 came out. So, I mean, it smells like lavender. 2 probably would have been better. Maybe even 1 if you're sensitive, but 3 was definitely enough. I put more rice than that. I just added the lavender to that first batch of rice, so it kind of gave it a little mix. And then from there, I put the funnel in the opening and poured it into the bag, which you'll see in a second. So you're gonna insert the funnel into that opening that we left. And you're just gonna gradually fill it up with rice. I had something sticky on my funnel. It came from the kitchen, so I had like sugar or something or honey on it. So you're gonna pour your rice down into the funnel and just shake it gradually, just get it to fall down into your rice bag. It kind of takes more rice than you initially think it will. So just make sure to have enough on hand for this project. And as you're filling it up, kind of play with it, see if it's enough rice. You can always pour some out, but sometimes you don't know exactly how much you're going to want in there until you start putting it in there. So whatever your personal preference is, if you want it only to be partially full of rice, or if you want it almost filled to the brim with rice, that's for you to decide. It's your project. I sped this part up because it's not exactly that entertaining. This is me trying to be like playing with it, like, oh, gonna add a little bit more rice. I think that's finally enough rice. Yeah, so now go back to your machine and you have this tiny little opening. So you want to push the rice away from that opening as much as you can. And you want to go slowly. It's a very small area to sew, so make sure you don't rush it. It's only like an inch, so just go slow. So start by going over your previous top stitching from before that's close to the edge. Just line your needle up with that, put your foot down, and then lower your needle down. And slowly stitch over that small opening until you reach your stitching on the other side. As you go, feel for stray pieces of rice with your fingers, and if you feel any, stop sewing and just kind of push them out of the way. You don't want to run over one and accidentally break a needle. So just go slowly, take your time. You can see the rice on the other side of the foot being held at bay. It's pretty full of rice. You don't want to fill your bag so full that you can't even get your foot on there though, the sewing machine foot on there. You want to have a little bit of wiggle room for that foot to be able to go down. So once you reach the other side, make sure you stitch backwards a few times just to fix it in place, and then pull it away and trim those extra thread, and your project is done! Congratulations, you just sewed a microwavable rice bag! When microwaving your rice bag, microwave it for about a minute at first, and then add increments of 30 seconds or less until you reach the desired temperature. So be careful not to burn yourself, okay? So did you complete this project? Did it turn out like you wanted? I hope so. Let me know in the comments. And until I see you guys next time in the next video, please stay safe and remember to give your pets lots of hugs and kisses. Bye! Hello YouTube, my name is Emily and I suck. Hello YouTube. Ah!